You're listening to the Wrestleview Radio Network.
Adam Morton back with you here at the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame in Waterloo, Iowa. And joining me now is the director of the Hall of Fame, Mr. Kyle Klingman. And Kyle, we just talked with Kent Sesker about the museum and huge events this weekend. There's just a ton going on. We're in the midst right now of an autograph signing with some of the top legends in the history of professional wrestling. Go ahead and let people kind of know, how long you've been involved with the museum here and kind of some of your duties that you've done so far.
Been involved since 2002. I started when I was in Newton, Iowa, and this museum was started in 1998. I started in 2002, actually went away for a year right after the flood of 2008. We were down for about 6 months and came back in October of 2009, so I've been in the director role since that point. And this is always our biggest event of the year, 2-day event. It's our only 2-day event that we have. And you mentioned the legends. Just to know, right back behind us is Terry Funk and Jim Ross and Danny Hodge. And, I mean, you probably named them all. We have all these legends back here, Bob Roop. They're all here in the Hall of Fame. We get to be right next to that. So when you can get excellence and you can get a lot of people who have been the top in their sport together like this,
crazy.
In Waterloo, it's unbelievable. In the town where the National Wrestling Alliance was formed in 1947, you have all of that right here. You have the history in human life right here. That's special for us, and I love that part of this weekend.
That's always the thing I've loved the most about this. Is just a couple blocks away is the birthplace of the National Wrestling Alliance and a hotel, and it's crazy to be here and your experience and everything. I mean, there's some really rich history, not only with professional wrestling but amateur wrestling as well here in Iowa. Obviously with Dan Gable, an icon in amateur wrestling. I was talking to Kent how there's obviously a great wing for professional wrestling here, but there's also a lot of stuff here about amateur wrestling. So if you're into both, I mean, you could literally walk around this place and it's going to take you almost about 2 hours to get through everything and see all this stuff. And kind of let people know, too, that have never been to this before. When they walk into the museum, what do they expect to see? Talk a little bit also about the pro wrestling wing as well.
I want to talk about that, but I want to go back to what you're talking about, Dan Gable being from Waterloo. The National Wrestling Alliance was formed in the President's Hotel, and interestingly enough, that was Dan Gable's grandfather that was the manager of that. So Dan Gable is going to be at our banquet tonight, and then we have the history with Terry Funk and this NWA, the history right here. So it's like it's all coming back together. So when we talk about the history and the whole of the sport, we have a professional wrestling wing. We have the George Tragos, Thesz professional wrestling wing, and it just shows the history and the divide between amateur and professional wrestling. It makes sense to be able to show that because at one point professional wrestling was what you thought about with wrestling with Frank Gotch, and then the evolution. Ed Strangler Lewis in the mid 1920s kind of changed that when he really kind of, I don't want to say took a dive, but there was that match where he kind of made that separation when it became legitimate to that professional aspect, and we've seen the split ever since that point. And we have collegiate wrestling, and then we have the entertainment form. But we like to document it all. Where we're sitting right now is actually the Greco-Roman Hall of Champions. Then we have an Iowa Wrestling Hall of Fame over here. We have NCAA pavilion over here. We have the Olympic Championship pavilion over here. So we cover it all. We cover the history, and we don't want to leave anything out. And that was really important to us to make sure we documented every part of this sport.
Absolutely. Any backlash to the mixing of amateur wrestling and pro wrestling? Because one thing right now that I've noticed is that, with the rise of mixed martial arts, there's a lot of people who used to be into pro wrestling that are now into mixed martial arts. Obviously, there's a great facility just behind us where there are MMA workouts and amateur wrestling workouts. But any backlash you felt of mixing the two in the same building, or someone saying, why is a pro wrestling wing involved with an amateur wrestling wing?
Yeah, we get backlash. And in fact, when we merged with the National Wrestling Hall of Fame, we're actually the National Wrestling Hall of Fame Dan Gable Museum now. We merged with that organization. We were the Dan Gable International Wrestling Institute Museum. We got backlash, and it wasn't until they came here and they saw it, and they saw how the history unfolded, they saw what we're documenting, what we're preserving, and then some of our biggest adversaries, the people who were against it the most, turned around and became our biggest assets about it.
Sure.
And they've actually been in our board meetings saying, hey, this is important to the sport. This is an important part of the museum. You don't want to give that up. So it's been fun to see people do that turnaround. And I guess in pro wrestling, there's turning from heel to face, and I think that's probably a good way to describe what they were, because they came in absolutely negative about it, not wanting it here. Why do we have this? And then they see it, and they're like, wow, this is really impressive.
And let's talk about the pro wrestling wing, because when you walk in, there's a ring set up in the middle. There's just tons of merchandise. There's old posters. Bret Hart donated his jacket. I mean, there's just tons of stuff in there. If somebody's never been to this and they're thinking about coming out to Waterloo, what can they expect when they walk into that wing?
Well, when they walk in the wing, the first thing you're going to see is kind of the jackets. And we wanted to set that up like it's a locker room. And we have these legendary robes and jackets, the ring merchandise that they would wear in the ring. And then we also have boots on display. We have actual belts on display. We have a nice Frank Gotch exhibit. And, of course, we have the ring in the middle of the George Tragos Thesz Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame. But that's important, too, because collegiate wrestling was contested in rings for a long time. And we have a picture that says Iowa Wrestling established in 1911, and it has Iowa Wrestling in a ring. And that's how they did it. It got too expensive, and then they went to the mats, and we know the evolution of that. But it's really important to go in there and just be able to see, all right, this is where the split happened, and we have the documentation of what that split looks like.
Absolutely. And I want to talk a little bit, too, about a lot of the festivities that take place. It's not just something on Saturday. It kind of starts Friday and then obviously culminates on Saturday with a big banquet that's going to take place later today. Mick Foley scheduled to MC that event. Tell people kind of, if they come here, you know, it's not just coming to the museum and getting an autograph. I mean, it's kind of a big experience of a banquet and seeing all the inductions. Let people know kind of what they can expect if they come here and see that.
You said experience, and I think that really hits on what this is because you actually get to be with these guys and experience it side by side. It's not that you just go to an autograph signing and then you're out. You get to actually be here and interact with these professional wrestling legends. And if you go to that banquet, which is on Saturday, we always have it as the culmination. We didn't have it last year, but we brought it back. That is the culmination of the entire weekend. That's when you get inducted into the George Tragos Thesz Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame. And it's special when those guys get to go up there and tell their story about how they got there. And that's one of the most special times for me, is because they get to be candid. And this year, I feel bad for anyone that didn't get a ticket, because with Mick Foley being the MC, Larry Hennig's going to be there, Dan Gable's going to be there. We talked about mixed martial arts. We're finally getting that incorporated. We have a mixed martial arts award that's going to Pat Miletich, along with all the legends we talked about earlier: Jim Ross, Terry Funk, Jerry Briscoe, Bill Murdoch, all the guys that have been our award winners, Danny Hodge. They're all going to be in one place. I'm getting chills thinking about it. It's just going to be awesome to have that. And Jim Ross said this in an interview yesterday with Brian Marshall on Rock 108. You're probably not going to see this group of people together ever again.
Absolutely.
And so to be there tonight for that brief moment of 3 hours with this group of people, it's never going to happen again. You're never going to get those people in Waterloo, Iowa. So it's an experience. It's the special part of this, because you get those guys together.
It's a rare place. I mean, there's independent promotions that book a lot of legends maybe on a card, or they might get one or two, but you don't. It's rare you get this many legends under one roof, and obviously a big banquet. So to me, it's I don't even feel like I have to sell this to anybody.
Yeah.
I mean, you just
under one roof in a spot where Frank Gotch defended the title in 1909.
There you go.
Blocks away from the President's Hotel where the NWA was formed. I mean, this is the history right here, where Dan Gable was born. And to be in Waterloo, Iowa, it's special to me because I'm so passionate about this sport. It's the oldest sport, and we've talked about the history and where it's gone. It's so special, and to have the fans here and come support it, to have Adam Martin of Wrestleview, you've been awesome to us to want to promote this and be a part of it. You've always put our press releases up anytime, so we're big fans of Wrestleview, and we appreciate what you're doing.
Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate that very much. And if people want more information, obviously they can go to wrestlingmuseum.org, and there's tons of information, all the Hall of Fame inductees, there's photos, there's always details. Any ideas of what we're working on next year, or is it still too early because we're still trying to get through this weekend?
It's still early, and
okay.
I know Jerry Briscoe has kicked around some ideas on names, and they're names that have come up before, but a lot of times you have a name and it's only if you can get them here.
Sure.
Because they have to be here to participate. Now, Dory Funk Jr. was unable to be here, so Terry was here. So that's a name that we were able to get to be a part of it. But there's some names out there that a lot of people want to see involved. I mean, it's no secret that with Kurt Angle being an Olympic champion,
sure,
sometime you're going to see him here, I hope.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a no-brainer that he's going to go into this Hall of Fame. He has the pedigree, world champion, Olympic champion. He's as good as you get in this sport. So I would expect Kurt Angle in the next few years.
Awesome. Well, his name is Kyle Klingman. He's the director of the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame here in Waterloo, Iowa. Thank you, sir, for allowing me to do this and joining me on the show here. And everybody go to WrestlingMuseum.org for more information. So thank you very much, sir. Appreciate it.
And go to Wrestleview.com.
That
You're
too.
probably on this site right now, so you know about it, so I don't need to tell you, but go back often.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you.